Hey y'all, I'm Cheraw Tony. Today the road brings me to a place near Huntersville, North Carolina. I am at the historic Latta Plantation. The plantation was built around 1800 and is now closed until further notification. We're going to look around as much as we can and talk a little bit about the problems and perils that this place entails, but right after this station identification. This is the entrance to the historic Latta Plantation, home of James Latta, 1755 to 1837. This is the last remaining Catawba River cotton plantation open to public, but it's not open to the public anymore. I'll explain why later in the video. The windows of the Latta Plantation house have been boarded up. This is a federal style house. These granite steps at the Latta Plantation were carved by Lewis Pfeiffer, a slave owned by Amazon Sample. Lewis Pfeiffer also carved the gateposts and the steps at Hopewell Presbyterian Church. The historic Latta Plantation was built around 1800. It's one of the last plantations that's still standing on the Catawba River. For many years it was managed by the Mecklenburg County Parks and Recreation Department, but in June of 2021, all the brakes were put on. According to WSOC TV and other news sources, in June of 2021, there was an event planned at the plantation called Kingdom Coming. It was to include stories from the point of view of a slave owner and his newly freed slaves. Quickly, it was canceled, and the county and the Huntersville town leaders expressed their disapproval. Mecklenburg County had an agreement with historic Latta Place to manage the plantation since the mid-70s, and that agreement came to an end on June the 30th. And being quick to jump on the council culture wagon, Mecklenburg County has shut the doors and is in the present time looking for someone new to take over the plantation. The event promised to tell stories about freed slaves from the perspective of a slave master. That event sparked outrage from the community, and a records request revealed emails to Huntersville town leaders asking them to cut funding. The site manager, Ian Campbell, said in a statement that he would never glorify the Confederacy, white supremacy, or plantation owners, and he accused the media a rush to judgment before knowing the facts. I remember 10, 15 years ago, a mini-series came out called Centennial. It was about how a fur trapper named Pasquinel traveled down the streams in the Colorado mountains in the Rockies, and how he met with other fur trappers. And the movie goes on and comes up to present day Centennial, Colorado. There's a lot that can be learned from that movie that can apply to our very own lives. Where we came from and how we got to where we are now. What was instrumental in our history that helped shape and mold us into who we are today. In the movie Centennial, we learned that a lot of the characters were not exactly nice people. There were murderers and thieves and some pretty crooked stuff going on. But as history unfolded, they learned lessons from their ancestors, and they corrected things that needed correcting. This stone entrance pillar was perhaps laid by the mason Louis Pfeiffer. This church building dates back before 1833. It's the oldest standing, continuously used worship facility in Mecklenburg County. It was the second brick Presbyterian church in rural North Carolina. And this is what it looked like around 1917. That would have been the front entrance to the Hopewell Presbyterian Church. But off to the side, this door leads to a winding staircase that goes to the balcony. This was referred to by the Presbyterians in the early 1800s as the servants' entrance. These very steps were carved by a slave on the Latta Plantation, Louis Pfeiffer. He also carved the stone steps at a church in Charlotte, as well as the entrance gates here at the church. The George Eliot Family Cemetery, known only as a GPS mark, is somewhere in this general vicinity. There are no stones, no stumps, not anything to remind us of where they are laid to rest. Just a few miles from the Latta Plantation, slaves that are buried here would have came from another plantation. This stone is in the center of this little cemetery of the McCoys. They think perhaps between 50 and 25 slaves are buried here, erected by Albert McCoy's children to his slave's uncle, Jim, and his wife Lizzie, Uncle Charles, and family. And the Albert McCoy family, as well as the George Eliot family, they contributed to the building of this nation. They do not need to be forgotten.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your family and friends. And for now, y'all have a good day.